So 10 years of photography experience, what does that actually look like? Well, I spent the last decade going from a complete beginner to a professional, and in this video right here, I'm breaking down my biggest lessons and my biggest mistakes. So that you, my friend, can learn in minutes what took me years to discover. So my photography journey started back in 2014 when I decided to buy myself my first GoPro camera. Now at that time in my life, I was traveling quite a lot, like that backpacking thingy. Went out for a few months, one-way ticket and all that. And I did not have a YouTube channel yet. I just wanted to have something to document my journeys, and equipped with the old GoPro and my very first smartphone, the Samsung S3, I felt safe. Safe is not the right word, but I had something to capture my moments and film a photograph. Now, I call that part in my photography journey, the first 2 years, the what the hell am I doing? I have no idea what this is or how I'm going to make a good photo. Basically, it was for me that initial exploration phase, just snapping photos. And honestly, those photos weren't good at all. They kind of look like every normal person that has a phone that is just snapping photos. And in 2016, my father-in-law gifted me an old Canon 60D. I remember when he gave it to me, and I was just so intimidating. All of a sudden, had a camera in my hand that had aperture. What the hell is aperture? ISO? What is that? And shutter speed. Plus, it had manual mode and all that weird stuff, which my phone didn't have. So I remember it took me so long to just get it in my hands, and he was always like, it's not hard at all. He's like a professional. And he was like, it's not hard at all. Just use it, man. And he gave me one lens, a 24 to 70 millimeter. And that was also something that I had no idea what the hell. Focal length, zoom, what is all this stuff? So, the next few months there, let me take this up a little bit. So the next few months that followed there were just getting acquainted with having a real and a proper camera and understanding the basics, really. And that led me to buying a Sony a6-300, an absolutely legendary camera. And by the way, at this time in my life, I'm a professional magician. And the reason I got into YouTube was to create magic videos. But because I was traveling too, I was taking photos a lot, and I started to get more and more interested in photography. And for instance, this photo right here, I think I shot this back like in 2017 or 2016. It's pretty garbage when it comes to color and all that. But notice I have a subject there and a leading line going through. And I've just been watching YouTube videos and reading up some tutorials talking about this. And I went out exploring. This is in like the Harbor in Reykjavik. And just pausing for a moment before you snap your photo and thinking, what is the subject here? How can I help compose this photo? Or how can I compose it? Makes such a massive difference from just snapping randomly. And by the end of 2017, I decided to do what is without a doubt one of the most pivotal parts in my photography journey, and something that made me so much better photographer at such a fast rate. Because remember, these few years are pretty slow because I'm also focusing on video. But in 2018, I decided to do a 1-year Instagram challenge. A very simple challenge. You basically post one photo a day for an entire year. Simple, not easy. And the reason I did this was to force myself to go out with my camera and capture a ton of photos and then put it into Lightroom and edit every single day. Now, the reason that I thought this was a very good idea is that because when I was 14 all the way to 22 or 21, I think, I was obsessed with powerlifting, and I used to compete in that sport. And anybody who's done any type of strength training knows the power of repetition. You don't get strong by hitting the gym once, twice, or 3-4 times. You get strong by hauling your ass into the gym, lifting them weights, day in, day out, like week after week, year after year, and then you start to see results. But it is all of those small reps that you do that builds the strength. And I just wanted to apply that philosophy to photography as well. And the reason I picked Instagram is that at the time I had like a few hundred followers, mostly my friends and family, and I went public with it. And here is a very important aspect in holding yourself accountable, and you have to figure out ways for you to do that. For me, it was just saying to everybody, hey, I'm going to post every day for a year, and I'm going to do it. And I don't want to be seen as a loser. So I did that. And my photos just went from something like this in the beginning to so much better. This photo right here, I remember shooting it. This is not the best photo, whatever, but I remember being up on this mountain. It's in Thorsmörk in Iceland, and the sky was just amazing. There's some sort of subject, and I squatted a little bit low to get a little bit of foreground, and I was just, wow, this is insane. And by the end of this year, I shot this photo right here, and this photo is the first time in my photography journey where I thought to myself, holy shit, did I just fucking do that, you know? Did I press the shutter and shoot this photo? This looks ridiculous. And even to this date, I still think this is one of my favorite photos. It's not the best, but it's still pretty good. And this was shot on the A6-400, I think, with a 10 to 80 millimeter f4 from Sony. I'm just so stoked, and I've sold this as prints, which is just fantastic in limited edition. So that feeling of going out and capturing something that you're so proud of and you're so happy with, and you think like, did I just make this? That is something that has got me completely hooked. And another good story with the 1 year challenge is that after, like, is my mic always dropping here? But after the 1 year challenge, I got contacted by a watch company in Stockholm. I lived back then in Stockholm, Sweden, and they wanted to offer me, paying me money for taking photos. They were like, hey, we've been seeing your photos on Instagram. Can you help us out? And they paid me, I think I took like 200-300 euros, not that much, but still, that was also extremely cool validation. And it was just from me deciding to go out and take photos and forcing myself to get better through sheer just brute force of repetition. Now, if you decide to do the 1 year challenge, which I highly recommend, it's such a good challenge, then there are 3 things that I want to tell you then. Firstly, you're not doing this necessarily to grow your Instagram. You're doing this to grow your skills. And you shouldn't just go out next to your house and take 1,000 photos, and then you have 1,000 photos, and now you have like one for 3 years if you post one a day. That is not the intention. The intention is to try to be competitive. So I encourage you to try out different things, different styles, different lenses, different looks, and constantly pushing yourself. So that is one thing that I definitely recommend. Secondly, you need to figure out a way to hold yourself accountable. For me, it was doing it through Instagram. And the reason Instagram is there, instead of just doing it on the folder, I think you're doing something. You have a purpose, and the purpose is to press upload. Instead of it doing in a folder nobody sees, I think it will dwindle down, because a whole year of doing this is a big commitment, you know. And then secondly, and this is a psychological factor, and this is something maybe I'm just a little bit strange in my head, but this is something that I truly believe in my core, is that I think it's very important if you yourself tell to yourself, nobody else knows it, but you tell to yourself that I am going to do something, that you stick to it. Because if, for instance, you tell yourself, I'm going to eat healthy for a month, and then after 2 weeks you don't do it, you're like, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. Then what you're telling to yourself is that you're not the person that sticks to something. You're not that type of person that goes through with what things that you're going, like saying that you're going to do. You understand? And committing to a whole year challenge, then I want you to commit to it totally. And it is not easy, but the reward that you get in your own psychological self, in your own being, is that after a year, like, wow, I did this. I said I was going to do it, and I did it. It was not easy, but man, I am capable of doing this. By the way, I made a free 30-day email series to help you get better at photography. Basically, we're diving into composition fundamentals, as well as how to make your photos stand out with color and light. It's totally free, and you can find it in the description down below. Anyway, now after the 1 year challenge, we are at a phase in my photography. I've been shooting now for a few years, I think like 4. I'm coming into the 5th year. And here, I am really focusing on composition and editing. And you can see that in my photos. For instance, this photo right here, I remember when I shot it, I think this is like back in 2018, 2019. And I asked my lady, just, can you walk in the sand here? Because now I'm making a leading line. We have a small subject for scale, and this is something that I like a lot in landscape photography. You have a person there, and it gives a sense of scale of how big everything is. And then I have a big mountain there, and it's just a nice leading line and whatnot. And I remember at that time, I'm thinking so much about leading lines and some composition rules, and just trying to up my skills in that realm. And here is a photo I remember when I shot this. I basically asked my friend, can you pose there? He's backlit by the sun, and then I'm just opening up the shadows and all that in post-production. That's why you can see him so much. But the rail there, the handrail, it acts as a leading line, and I was super happy with this shot. Now, so far in my journey, I'm mostly using Sony a6-300 and a6-400, and then I had a drone, my Mavic 1 and then a Mavic 2 when that came out. And around 2020, then I'm like 5, you could argue 6, but I say 5 because the first 2 years was just like me with phone photos and GoPro doing whatever, you know. But Here, I'm starting to feel pretty damn comfortable with my skills. And when you learn something, the learning curve is the steepest in the beginning. You learn the most in the first few years. Maybe for you, you're going to do this much faster. But for me, it took a little while. Maybe it took some slow in the head. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that the learning curve is always the steepest at the beginning. You learn the most the first few years to the first few months, and then it goes slower, and the amount that you learn is less and less noticeable. And I think around year 5 and 6, this is where I'm starting to take photos that I'm truly proud of. For instance, this photo right here, this is the first time that I'm playing with a long lens. This is the Sony 70 to 350 millimeter on an APS-C camera, so it's equivalent to like 550 millimeters on a full frame. Pretty decent range, you know? And this photo is in the middle of the pandemic. And in Iceland during that time, there were no tourists because everything was closed. So for instance, this site, which usually is like a lot of tourists, it was just me and my friend. And I asked him, can you go there and just stand there on that little hill that you see? And I remember when I shot it, I was just like, wow, this is just so cool. And I was so happy. And following that, I shot this photo. Here I'm using a leading line. I shot this photo right here, using the road as a leading line. And using roads as leading line is something that I've loved and enjoyed a lot. And I would say that this year, from like year 5, 6, 7, 8, here I'm really stepping up my game a ton. And I'm really focusing and becoming better at the things that I've been focusing so much on, which is composition and editing. I feel that that is something that is my strength when it comes to photography. And here I'm just taking photo after photo that I'm just truly happy with. Whether it's an aerial photo or it's with my camera, then a ton of my favorite shots are shot here. Now they're not perfect, and I feel that this year I've leveled up my photography so much in a much more subtle way that I'll talk to you in a second. First, I just want to show you that I revisited one place. So remember this photo right here that I showed you before? I actually went back 2 years ago and shot the exact same frame. And just notice how much, at least in my opinion, my skills have evolved. It's pretty much the same frame, but I think the editing, the way that I shoot, the settings and everything is just a little bit better on the photo, like the latter photo. At least in my opinion. Let me know what you think. But I think it's just a lot cleaner and smoother. And this is something that I enjoy doing from time to time, going back to old frames and shooting them again, just to see how much my skills have evolved. Now, I would say that from year 6, 7 to at least year 9-ish, so from 2002 to 2024, my photography stagnated a little bit. I got a little bit better and I started to understand colors and light, and I was hunting for light a little bit, and you can see a lot of cool frames that I shot from there. But at that time I had 2 kids, and I'm focusing a ton on creating this YouTube channel and my Instagram and TikTok and all that. It's a massive amount of work running these channels, like a ton, but it's also extremely rewarding and something that I enjoy. But that, combining with being a full-time dad, and now soon I have my 3rd kid, means that I don't have a ton of time. And that has, in my opinion, been a little bit hard for my photography. But this year, I decided to do another 1-year challenge and push myself to become better. And I think currently, my photos have evolved a ton. I'm shooting frames that are less copying others. That is a phase in photography too that I think is totally fine. That you go on Instagram, you see frames that you like and you try them out for yourself. Imitating is a very good way of learning. And in magic, when you do card magic, as I told you, that was what I lived off for a long time. You don't go straight into card tricks and come up with your own. You copy what other people do and you learn that. And I think it's similar for photography. But when you come up with your own frames, that is very satisfying. So that is one thing that I'm focusing on. And then one thing that I'm focusing on ton this year is light. I'm looking for good lighting condition and good quality of light and these pockets of light and whatnot. And then another thing I've been focusing a ton on is color and implementing color theory. Because color can not only help by portraying a feeling, but how you balance the colors in your photos matters a ton on how it looks. And colors work differently with each other. So that is something that I've been focusing on a ton recently as well. And by the way, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I run an online community for photographers. You can kind of think about this as a gym, but for photographers, you come in, you have some fun, you get better, practice your skill, give each other feedback, interact with others. As a member, you don't only get a ton of access to me, I'm there interacting with everybody and trying my best to help anybody out, whether it's giving feedback or getting feedback sometimes too. But you also get access to all of my digital products and all of my courses. That is nice entire Lightroom masterclass, which is everything that I learned over editing for the last 10 years as a hobbyist and a professional. We have a whole module 2 on color theory and everything that. So if you're interested, you can find more information in the description down below. So as I said, this year right here, my 10th year, or technically my 11th year of photography, has been a big breakthrough for me because I'm focused again on becoming better. And I think, for me at least, the way that I become better is to focus on something particular and try to understand that better. And one practice that I've liked to do throughout the years, and one thing that has helped me become better at composing images, is to have just pick one of these composition rules, whether it is the rule of thirds, leading lines, negative space, like framing, or whatever it is, and focus on it for a week or two and just focus on that. Because one thing that happens when you revisit these rules, even if you already know them, is that you understand them better and they become instinct, So when you're out shooting, especially for outdoor photography, the world is just very dynamic and things move really fast. So knowing in your bones how you're gonna compose the shots can make or break a photo. Now, in my opinion, the difference between those who are good at photography and those who aren't is that those who aren't, they simply just suck. I am kidding. They're worthless. No, I'm also kidding. No, it's the fact that those who are good at photography, they just haven't quit. The most important aspect in becoming good at whatever it is in life is to not quit and just to stick to it week after week, month after month, year after year. Eventually, you will become better. And that's why we look up at those within whatever that we are interested in, who've been doing it for a decade, 2 or 3, and be like, wow, you're really good. How are you so good? Because I've been doing it for 30 years. But just sticking to it is, of course, not enough. You need to combine that with actively seeking out knowledge and actively then going out and applying that knowledge. And then once you've applied that knowledge, you review. In my opinion, editing is not only a fantastic way to help you create fantastic photos, but you're looking at your photos so you can review them with a critical eye. So you see that, I did it like this now. This was not good enough. Maybe next time when I'm shooting a tree like this, I can do it in this way. And then you try that, and then you come back to editing. So it becomes a beautiful loop. And another thing I personally like is joining some sort of community. You don't have to join my club, although I think it's a pretty sick club. But you might have a photo club in your town. Go to them. Ask if you can play too. Because being a part of other like-minded people who are also really interested in the same thing as you gives you just so much motivation. Not only do you have somebody who's not your wife, I don't know how many times they're like, babe, have you seen this shot? And she's like, I've seen, yes. Can we talk about something else, So I have my photo nerds that I can nerd about and everybody understands. Yeah, I bought myself a lens. It costed like $3,500. Makes no sense. But in our little club, yeah, it makes total sense. Totally understand why I did that. So 0 years of photography to 3, 4, 5 years of photography, a massive difference. It's not even comparable. You've gone from taking just random photos that your mom takes, I don't know, maybe your mom is a sick photographer and just dissed you, sorry, to photos that are more intentional. You've understood composition, you're starting to understand light, and your photos all around just look pretty damn cool. And then from 5 to 10 years, now you're mastering those skills. You're really honing in on what makes you good at photography and that you like, plus you're starting to add new things to the mix. You think, okay, I need to get better at storytelling. You start to focus on that. Or you think, like me, I need to get better at the light and want to really master at light. So you start to focus on that. Then the colors and all other things. And then from 10 to 20 years, I can't tell you what happens then, because I have only been doing it for 10, However, with all that being said, then there are a few mistakes I personally see people make again and again and again. And in my opinion, it's important that you do not fall into these traps if you're serious about taking your photos to a whole new level. So my friend, watch this video right here next, because I break it down in detail.